days are starting to run together. But when they're ready for something different, I'll be right here. Hey guys, welcome back to Todd Audio. Today I'm going to review the Akai APC Mini because it is an awesome product and probably one of the best $100 that I've ever spent in music. I know that's a big statement, but if you're just looking for a good time and you like Ableton Live, you want to mess with some loop recording, but you don't want to be sitting there clicking the mouse the whole time, it's basically just a remote control in a compact form to control the tracks in session view on Ableton Live. If you don't already have a recent copy of the full version, it does include the light version of Ableton Live for free with it, which is another big bonus. So basically, if you're very limited on what you have to record with and you were to go get this product, you would have a version of the software to use for it and you would have the remote to control it. Other than that, you might need a recording interface if you plan on recording live instrumentation or vocals. If you're using only software instruments and just using your mouse, then I don't even know if this product would really make as much sense for you because you're already sitting there at the computer, kind of clicking out your sounds. But if you even have a MIDI keyboard or something like that, or you're playing the instruments in any form, and you don't want to have to be there at the desktop, especially if you want to do live music and live looping, something like this really comes into play. If you're working at it in a studio setting, then it just really speeds up the workflow because you're not constantly clicking and everything becomes real visual, where you're just kind of looking at the Akai APC Mini interface and using that to control most everything that you do after you get your tracks and instruments set up. So let's take a look in a little bit more detail. So here it is, and I have mine just hooked up to my keyboard rig because it is an excellent product just for a live performance type deal. These all have LED lights, which I'll demonstrate here in a minute. They light up and they're color coordinate according to whether it's recording, the track's playing, or there's something there that's been recorded and it is not currently playing. So these, if you're familiar with the Ableton Live session view, these are your scenes. Same thing. It's all laid out on a grid. So these are your scenes. And then the vertical rows are your different instruments. So you get a scene going with maybe drums on one instrument, bass on another, piano, so on. And you get the tracks that all kind of go in sync on one scene. These buttons will launch the next scene. So that's basically your scene launch button there. And this is when I mostly use it. There's different modes on this. I almost always have mine in recording mode because that's what kind of gets it to remote in and control the recording and the loops within Ableton. Then of course you have these sliders to control the volume levels of each track, and these sliders are not motorized faders. Obviously you're going to pay a lot higher price point for motorized faders, and they hardly ever will come on anything this portable. Alright, so let's get going. First, to start with, you'll see this red box there. That may be unfamiliar. What that represents is the range that the APC Mini controls. So you got track 1 over here, then you got track 8 over here. You got scene 1 up here, you got scene 8 down there. Over here, you got track 1 and track 8. You got the first scene, and you got the button for scene 8 to launch down there. So this red box is just telling you that you're within that range. Another thing you can do is you can hold the shift button and you can press the over arrow here, and it'll change that range. You click it, range changes. But with the light version of Live, you're just going to have 8 tracks to work with anyway. So we'll start with the first track. I've got drums set up, and also let me say real quick that if you have a recent version of Ableton or use the one that's included with it, there's really no major setup. It's easy to set up. You plug it in, the drivers are installed. Once you open Ableton, it recognizes it, and everything's loaded. I'm working with just the default settings right now. I really haven't changed anything other than, which doesn't really have, this does not really have to do with the APC Mini, but I'll throw in a quick tip. If you're using this and want to use a loop controller, I picked up a pedal, just like a keyboard pedal. You can plug that into a MIDI pedal input on your keyboard or some type of MIDI controller. Then I normally go into here to change my MIDI controls. I go to overdub recording and I trigger that pedal to control that. So now I basically have a pedal that if I hold down, it will record overdub. If I let go, then it stops the recording. So I don't always have to be pressing these pads over here manually. And I'll get into more of that in just a second. Let's start with the first track. To put it in record mode, which is what I almost always use, you hold shift and you just hit the third button down, record an arm. Right now the second track is armed, which is the bass, which is right there. I'm going to switch it to the first one, and that switches it over to the drums, which I've hooked up to be controlled by this Atari Mini Lab. Switch to the bass, keys, keys. And there you have it. You can just switch to instruments rapidly. I didn't touch anything with my mouse, keyboard, nothing. If I want to go back to battery 4, click here to make sure I have the first scene selected. Then I'm just going to hit my pedal, which isn't in the video of the Mini Lab. Here, I'll do it manually with my hand. I hit this pedal with my foot. And until I let go of that, it's getting ready to launch the first track. There it goes. It's launched. So if I were playing drums right now, hold on. It'll basically record that in a loop. Since it's in overdub mode for the first track, when I let go of it, that's when it starts the track at the end of that measure. So then it starts looping that track. So we'll probably hear that drum bit come in just a minute. And there you go. There it is. So it starts looping that. I'm going to go ahead and undo that recording. And then you can, get a loop going on the drums. You can hit this. You can hit the pedal again or press this to start your next track. Put a little bass in there on top of that drum track. Let go of the pedal or hit this to basically start that loop. And then that starts looping in with the drums. And I have some live performance versions of how this works. I'll put a link below or something so you can actually see this in action with an actual song or something like that going. But you can just basically follow that pattern all the way through and be using this remote the whole entire time. You just set everything up in the beginning. You get your tracks, your drums, your bass, whatever you think you're going to want to use, and it's all lined out on this remote. It's even got volume faders. So you can be mixing it kind of live or feeling it out as you're going. Or if you're producing, you can just in an instant switch to the next instrument. So for a live looping session, you get the pedal going, you get the tracks going, and that's basically it. Now, let me get into one other thing real quick, which is the LED lights. You got the red one here already, and that just tells you what track that you have selected. But now I'm gonna start a new track. First it'll flash red. That means the track is pending and about to start. When it's holding red, just a solid non-flashing red, you have a track being recorded on there. When you stop that track, and if you've pressed the button to start the track, with the pedal trick, you can also tap the pedal to stop that. It'll start flashing when it's about to stop again, turns green when it's playing. If I had another scene down here in Ableton with a bridge or a chorus or something, I just click to switch to that scene and you'll see it turns yellow. So if I have two tracks going here, another drum track, tap the pedal, you got that track, so that's the one playing. The other one is paused. I can hit this track manually and switch to it, and it would keep playing this scene with this track up here playing, or I can switch the entire scene at a time up here, and it's always in timing. So basically, like I said, the whole thing is basically just a remote to control Ableton Live. And it's awesome because whether you're using it for live performances or production with instruments where you're with hands-on instruments, then it's going to speed up your workflow majorly. Alright, so the only other thing I maybe should have mentioned is I did all my stuff with MIDI or with VST instruments that were being controlled by MIDI keyboard controllers. You can also use this with live audio. So just like you can have audio and MIDI tracks in Ableton, it applies to either one, whether you're hooking a guitar or a bass up to your recording interface, or you're doing MIDI instruments, or a mix between the two. It'll work just fine. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up now. That basically sums up everything I wanted to say and show you, and kind of all the things I use it for. But if you have any questions or want to know anything else that I could possibly look into, let me know and I'll check it out for you. If you're not subscribed to my channel yet, please subscribe, and thank you for watching.